Welcome again to this video from the 10-year timeline book club. My name is Francis, for those of you that haven't met me, I have a passion for books, and that's why I'm doing this. The reason I have a passion for books is two things really. Number one, I am very comfortable learning from those books, and that's why I've done it. Number two, in the last few years, I have spent some time working in the learning space for an international company and coming to terms with a lot of skills that companies need. So this has been a bit of a passion for me, and for that reason I thought, hang on, I've been going through a lot of books, why not go through these books again? If you haven't heard that story, well, you've heard it now, and I'd appreciate it if you push the like button, get this video out to a lot of people, but also push subscribe and subscribe to this channel so you can support the work that I do. Today we're going to review a book by John Maxwell. John is a very personal favorite author of mine on topics around leadership, and this book is The 15 Laws of Leadership. I also want to talk about that book, which I hope to finish and reviewing very soon. It is the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. It is a book that I was gifted, I think, when I started working many moons ago, and this is something that I really treasure and value in my library. Then there's this book by Richard Susskind and Daniel Susskind, and it is The Future of Professionals. Now, if you watched the Future of Professions, rather, if you watched the last video, you'll remember, I'm going to put it this way, so at least those of you that haven't taken the topics that we're going to look at can at least look at the books that we're gonna look at. But as I said, if you haven't watched the first video that I did, you can go and do that. It is on automation, and I talked briefly about AI, and this is a subject that I like, and technology, etc. So that book talks about what's going to happen to professions, written a lot earlier than Future Proof, which is the book we looked at last time, but quite useful anyway. Quickly, just to go through, there are 15 laws. Can't go through all 15 laws, so I've chosen 8 to talk about and to highlight, because I think they connect to what I'm passionate about and to the message that I want to point out. So in this second part of the video, I want to just talk briefly about what the book is about. And I think if you go through the whole book, it's pretty clear that the very first law, the law of intentionality, really sums up what the book is about. This law says growth doesn't just happen. So throughout the book, you can see that message coming back and coming up all the time. So this is something that I sincerely believe. It is, ever since I got this book, I have practically lived with the book and have applied some of the ideas out of that book. So that first law, the law of intentionality, I'll talk about. I also want to talk about the law of the mirror, which is about how you see yourself, the law of consistency, the law of design, which is a personal favorite of mine. I think partly because I started to believe around the time I picked up this book that I needed to design every bit of my life. I don't plan every bit, but at least I design. There's a sense of direction in where I'm going, and that was very useful for me. The law of pain, which resonates with me, don't really like it, but one of the things that I've learned in my life is how you deal with setbacks, how you come back from setbacks, and how you learn from pain. So this was a good law for me to go over. The law of the rubber band, talking about tension between where you are, where you want to be, an interesting law to look at. And then the law of expansion. Growth always increases your capacity, so very important for you to talk about or to think about how you can increase that capacity. So I want to talk briefly about that. And then the last one is the law of contribution, which I said earlier is something that I'm very keen on. Now, to start off with very quickly, what's the law of intentionality? I think sums it up in this sentence: simply because you want it doesn't mean you'll get it. Right? I suppose that covers every bit of life, right? Simply because you want something doesn't mean you're going to get it. And at a personal level, simply because you want to grow doesn't mean you're going to grow. Simply because you're alive, you're going to grow old, but doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to grow in every other area of your life. So I think it's very important to just understand the importance and the profoundness of that in order for you to be able to understand what you need to do. The second bit which he highlights, which again I like, is I don't know how to grow. So a lot of people want to grow, understand why they need to grow, but they don't know how to grow. And that is, for many people, where everything kind of stops. Again, pick up this book, have a sense of the attitude, the ideas, the things that you need to have in order for you to know how to grow. And he talks about an encounter that he had with somebody who gave him a kit. And this kit, he calls it a growth kit. And in that kit, there are 5 topics. And I like to say, if he had just organized this book around these 5 topics, I would have probably liked it, a lot more than I do like it now. But nonetheless, these 5 areas or these 5 topics are attitude, goals, discipline, measurement, and consistency. Now, you'll have heard from the laws that I picked up that I do cover some of these topics already. But attitude, goals, discipline, measurement, and consistency, that for me, forms the full plan. You sit down and you organize your life, your things around those 5 areas, and you're good to go. So very important, I think, to arrange that. He then talks about gaps, and he looks at 8 gaps. What are the things that you need to focus on in order for you to make sure that you are being intentional about your growth. So those 8 gaps, I think, are very important. They refer to things like how you design your growth, the attitude that you adopt, and you understand that growth is not going to be easy. So simply because you've decided to grow doesn't mean growth is going to be easy. So very important, I think, for you to kind of get all of that going. I think there are 3 questions that John suggests that I like. These 3 are: how far can I go? And can I do it now, or can I do it later? And the third one is, when is a good time to face my fears? Now, he doesn't put it in that way. I just decided to put it that way. But facing your fears, I think, is a very important part of growing or being intentional. Because if you don't face your fears, you procrastinate. So let's go back to that first one. How far can I go? Very important for you to look at that practically. You can ask that question and quickly answer it. If you don't spend time thinking, you will get an answer, but it may not necessarily be an answer that sustains itself. So very important to ask that question, how far can I grow? Number 2, do it now versus later. Again, practically. I mean, conceptually, very easy for you and me to just sit down. What can you do now? And you rattle a list of things. But sitting through, having decided how far you can go, what are some of the things you can do now versus later? So you can get to where you want to go. So you can get to this place you said, how far can I go? But B, so you can improve your ability to go even further than what you said you could get to. So very important. And then finally, the third one around facing your fears. If you know how far you can go, if you have decided what you can do now, it's important you figure out what's stopping you. A little bit of a little exercise we used to do back when I started out in work is we would set out all the goals that we had. And then we would set out what are the things that would stop these goals from being achieved. And then we would go and set out what are the things I need to do to mitigate, to manage these things that are likely to stop me. And that's about the only way I've ever come across that helps me to actually resolve my dealings with my fears. So very important, I think, that first law of intentionality. The second law, won't spend too much time on it, which is the law of the mirror, is simply about how do you see yourself, right? In order to add value to yourself, you need to change how you see yourself. And that self-esteem is a big part of your growth. You need to be very, very clear in your mind about that. I took down a quote here from the book. Nathaniel Brandon, is quoted by John, and he says, "Every aspect of their lives is impacted by how they see themselves." So every aspect of their lives is impacted by how they see themselves. How do you see yourself, vis-a-vis the growth you want to achieve? How do you see yourself vis-a-vis the competition you have? How do you see yourself vis-a-vis the work that's in front of you? Important how you answer those questions. If you are not being honest about the answers to those questions, then you stop yourself from achieving those goals that you want to that you want to achieve. So very important, I think, for you to do that. And also very important to figure out a way to build your self-esteem. John suggests about 10 things. I pick 4 of those 10. Guard your self-talk. You will talk to yourself more than you will talk to anybody else. So guard what you say to yourself. Second one, don't compare yourself to other people. I think anybody who's been anybody will know this. Your mom probably said it. Don't compare yourself to others. It's the surest way to kill your self-esteem when you don't quite understand what's driven somebody or what's driving somebody's success. Move beyond your limiting beliefs. What are the things that you tell yourself, oh, I can't do that because? You need to move beyond that. How do you do that? By being practical. Sit down, think through everything, and start to move away from those limiting beliefs. Fourth one is add value to others. Add value to others. Now, we'll talk about the law of contribution later, but absolutely, if you're trying to grow, particularly as a leader, you cannot do that by being selfish and by looking at yourself only, even and especially even when things are not going well for you. I often say to people that some of the best people that I've had the privilege of mentoring have been people that have gone and done much better than me. And at a time when, at that point in my life, I was desperately looking for growth. That growth wasn't coming. And then this person that I was mentoring, growth just was happening for them very, very quickly. But instead of looking at that as oh my God, there's something wrong with me, I looked at it and thought, well, at least I know what to do right? And I know that it works. Sometimes it's about chance. Sometimes it's about luck. And it will come. Third law, the law of consistency. Very, very important, I think, to look at your discipline. I don't believe in my willpower. I believe in the systems that I put in place and the discipline I have to follow through on those systems. I love this saying from Jim Tressel. It says, the hallmark of excellence, the test of greatness is consistency. If you want to be excellent, if you want to test how great you are, then look at how consistent you are. Very, very important, I think, perspective. So John goes off and talks about being, setting simple and immediate goals, being patient, valuing the process, and in valuing the process, things around, looking at small victories, being the best strategy. So rather than trying to achieve everything tomorrow, tonight, you achieve a few things and you go on to achieve more and more and more. The law of design, as I said, my personal favorite, it says, there's a quote in there from Jim Rohn, which I think I've lived by for a while now. It says, if you don't design your own plan, chances are you'll fall into someone else's plan. And guess what they may have planned for you? Not much. This is so true. A lot of people hope someone's thinking about their career. Someone's thinking about their life. I hope that people are thinking about your career. I hope that people are thinking about your life and what they can contribute to it. But I hope that you are doing more than they are doing. And I hope that you're working hard at that plan. Otherwise, you're going to be very, very disappointed. So be strategic. Make sure that you develop those strategies that depend on those systems that I talked about. Have a system for things and you will not be disappointed. Focus on your willpower. Focus on just hoping you'll do something because you want to do it. You will be very, very disappointed. Fifth law, the law of pain. Now, the law of pain is something that I have had to live through because of all the things that have happened in my personal life. But in doing that, I've resonated with this statement that says, every problem introduces a person to himself. Every time I've gone through a huge problem in my life, I've learned a new set of limits. I've learned, oh, I can tolerate this. I can do more than this. And that's become a huge part of how I deal with setbacks, how I come back from setbacks. So we cannot avoid pain, but we can deal with it in a way that helps us to come back from it, to recover from it, and understand, at least for ourselves, that this is a game we must play. There's absolutely no two ways about it. This is a game we must play. I think there's a statement, there I found it. It says, I choose to live with the pain of discipline rather than the pain of regret. So there's going to be pain, but you can change the kind of pain you go through, rather than go through the pain of discipline rather than the pain of regret. So again, a very good law to live by. The law of the rubber band, I referred to it earlier. I said growth stops when you lose the tension between where you are and where you could be. Right? Growth stops when you lose that tension between where you are and where you could be. So where could you be? Right? And does it feel like you're almost there? It means you potentially need to set new goals. And it's as simple as that. You need to keep that healthy tension between where you are and where you could be, constantly moving the goalpost, so to speak, so you can continuously look for a way to expand, which takes me to my next law, the law of expansion. There is no finish line. There is no finish line. I remember meeting somebody a few years ago who then said, I like all of this great attitude you have. You're constantly driven, you're constantly trying to achieve. But when does it stop? Where do you stop? And I said, well, for me, it stops when I can no longer do anything about it. And that potentially is the day I die, right? For me, I think a life lived is a fulfilling life. It is a life where you are growing, you are constantly achieving, and that achievement doesn't always have to be around career, doesn't have to be about money. It can simply be about family. I've spent the last 3-4 years just focusing on my family relationships, focusing on my own personal relationships, and that has been fulfilling. I have not really been focusing on my career growth, so to speak. And so it's not always about money. It's not always about some of the things that people see on the outside. Sometimes it's about things that you see on your inside. Remember what I said about the law of the mirror, how you see yourself, how you value yourself? Well, sometimes you just growing in that space, growing in the way you see yourself is enough tension. So why the law of expansion? What am I required to do is a key question. What am I supposed to be doing? What am I required to do? What will give me the greatest return? What gives me the greatest, reward? So you need to think about that. How can I change and expand so I can meet this new goal, this new place that I want to get to? And you need to stop. If you go back to your attitude again from that law of intentionality, you need to stop asking the question, "Can I do this?" and rather ask the question, "How can I do this?" So I'm always doing what that which I can do in order to learn how to do it. So when you are sort of learning something, you do what you can, and then by learning what you can, you expand what you could do, and constantly you are shifting and growing and moving. The last law that I want to talk about here is the law of contribution. I would rather have it said, he lived usefully than he died rich. This is a quotation from Benjamin Franklin. I would rather have it said, he lived usefully than he died rich. I think it's a great law to think about. I think one of the things that really drives me is this idea of a legacy. And I constantly ask myself, what is that legacy? I'm not a great sports runner. I'm not a political leader. I'm not a great business leader. I'm not any of these big things, these outliers that you'll see in the newspaper. But what is my legacy? It's okay to be forgotten. I don't think that's a problem. But I think it's better to be remembered for having grown people. I think it's better to be remembered for something. And that, for me, is your contribution to this world. You need to ask yourself, what am I contributing? How can I contribute it? Believe me, It is amazing what it does for your self-image. It is amazing what it does for your capacity. It is amazing what it does for the people around you, for the world around you. So you need to give that gift, and I think it's a great place to start. So we come to the end of a quick review of that book. Again, in this book, I love the way that it is written. I love the laws. I love how he organizes his thoughts. I love the things that he suggests. I like the quotations. If I were to give a quick assessment, I think it could have been shorter. I think it is certainly long. I think it could have been organized around a few ideas. I think it would have been much better if it was organized around a few ideas with a plan, a template that you could do. Again, that's because I'm looking at what I want to be able to use when I pick a book like this one. I think what stood out for me is definitely that it is well written. Yes, there are a lot of quotations. Yes, it tends to repeat itself here and there, but it is well written. It's easy to follow. I understand. Those things that I point out don't take away from the message of the book, and so that's very good. It got me thinking about a lot of things, right? So when you figure out that you are not growing, and you figure out how you can grow, and you're practical about what you can do, and you're working on these things, and you're making some steps, and you are seeing results, you definitely start to think to yourself, this is a great book that gets me to think about my life in a very, very different way. And I found that very, very useful. Okay, so the last part I want to talk about is ideas to action. I think it's important to grab this book, go to the end of each chapter. Once you finish reading it, go to the end of each chapter and identify the things you can apply. I think that's the biggest takeaway for me from this book. Take the things that you can apply, start applying them. I don't think this is a book you read end to end and put away. This is a book that you read end to end, potentially 3, 4, 5 times over a 5, 6, 7 year period. And you constantly question yourself, and you constantly change. And each time you ask the same question, you come up with a different answer because you're in a very different space. I think that the book has done definitely well in that space. The last thing I want to talk about is a book scale that I'm introducing in these videos. And there are 3 criteria in my book scale. The first one is readability and writing style. The second one is ideas and the quality of those ideas. The third one is, would I recommend the book? And I score these things out of 5. So I give 4 stars for readability and writing style. I give 5 stars for ideas and quality. I think it's great ideas and quality of those ideas is very good. I would recommend to this book to anyone very, very quickly. So I give 5 stars. So out of 15 stars that you could possibly get, I think he gets 14 stars. So this is certainly a very good book that I would recommend. Again, thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for your comments. I hope that you can share with me in the comments below ideas and books that you might want me to talk about in this area of leadership. And I look forward to seeing you again next time. Cheers.